The next presenter is certainly no stranger to ultrasound world. Mr. Tim Gossard, who has been a friend of UE Systems, spent a significant amount of time with Cargill, last served as their global reliability manager. Got a lot of experience with reliability leadership, actually a past chairman of the SMRP organization that you heard Sean Eisenhower talk about yesterday. So Tim's going to give us some good insight into reliability leadership. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Adrian. I want to thank UE System team for inviting me and letting me come. This is the 8th year, I think, I've been here, so it's a great place. So it's great to see you all. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I think what we've seen so far this morning is fairly technical stuff. What I'm going to talk about is not the technical stuff, and talk a little bit about questions that I get on a pretty consistent basis of my experiences when I was at Cargill, and how do you get an organization to want to improve, right? And so what I've done is try to put together some thoughts that I think maybe were beneficial and maybe helped our organization move forward, and that I think maybe you can apply no matter what role you have at whatever organization you're at, even if you're a supplier or if you're, you know, at just one plant or anything like that. So I didn't know what to call this thing, so I just said reliability leadership. Now, Adrian talked a little bit about my background, and I did this. I'm a chemical engineer, much like Senator Campbell. I think that's why we probably think alike. We're taught alike. I'm a chemical engineer from Penn State. I spent 33 years in Cargill in operations, in plants. My first job was a shifts supervisor in Memphis, Tennessee, in a corn wet milling plant, and I was on rotating shift for a year, and I would talk to folks in Memphis. Now, I'm a Yankee. You know, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I'm 22 years old, and I'm in charge of a shift in Memphis, Tennessee, and I couldn't understand anything anybody said. Okay, and I know all the engineering stuff, but I tell you what, I didn't know what a control valve looked like, because they didn't teach me that in school, right? And so I learned a lot in operations when I first started as a shift manager, and then and I worked my way up through operations until, you know, managing plants. The last 15 years of my career, I spent 15, 20 years at a corporate level, mostly working on maintenance improvement and reliability improvement. I've been involved with SMRP for almost over a decade, and also I'm involved presently in the Global Forum for Maintenance and Asset Management. You should check that out, gfman.org. You could check that out. SMRP is a founding member of that, a global organization. And now I work for Allied Reliability. I retired about a year ago, took early retirement, and had about 2 weeks off. My wife got tired of me being at home for 2 weeks, so said, why don't you go back to work? So that's what I did. So I work for Allied Reliability Group as a principal. So that's it. Now, a little bit of commercial of Allied. Many of you may know we're in the reliability and maintenance business. We basically have 4 basic companies. The one on the left in green, this is your predictive service company, where we have analysts that go into plants and actually do multiple technologies, from vibration to oil analysis to infrared to ultrasound to motor circuit testing to other deliverables we have, lubrication. Our consulting firm and training firm is GP Allied. We have a software suite of products called iReliability that is meant to work in conjunction with a CMMS or EAM. And essentially what it is, it's a compilation of all our tools our analysts and our reliability engineers use. And so we are using all these tools. Our key customers, and I was one of them at the time at Cargill, and said, hey, what do you have there? I'd like that, right? And so they used to give it to me in Microsoft Access, but now it's a web-based product that we sell to customers that need that product. So it doesn't do what a CMMS does. Oh, I can, but maybe in a small plant, but typically what we do is bolt on to CMMSs. And Impact Recon is where we look for reliability and maintenance talent. And that came out of our growth stage the last 5 years, where you know, our product basically is knowledge and people who know how to do things right in the reliability scale. And what we found as we grow, trying to find people is pretty tough, right? Is what we found. So we've had some success in finding some good people internally. There again, our customers, like a Cargill, like a Kraft Foods, said, hey, you're getting good people. We need some too. Can you help us? Boom, oh, now we're in business as a talent finding company, right? So essentially we have a full suite of products. Now that's the commercial for Allied, and I won't do any more of that, okay? They pay me to come here, so I had to do something, right? So. Okay, so my background, I talked a little bit about my career. My first career was, I was a shift supervisor, then a department supervisor, area supervisor, assistant plant superintendent, those kinds of things. And I had one role. I had a mechanically challenged department, I'll call it. It's a feed drying department. And my one role, I really had to learn how to do proactive maintenance just to survive and not get fired, okay? That's what really started with me. And that was back in the early 80s. And so it was a survival technique saying, if I'm going to survive this job and if I'm not just going to go crazy, something has to change. This reactive maintenance and getting calls in the middle of the night and all that kind of stuff is, you know, has to change, or I'm going to be changed. I'm leaving, right? So what I found was that my biggest problem in this plant, we had just got done an expansion, and the department I inherited or was asked to try to tame, they did shortcuts all over the plant. We had conveyors running 150 RPM, screw conveyors, stupid stuff. Just dumb stuff. So what you find is reliability in the beginning is part of design. You have to design it right, you have to operate it right, and you have to maintain it right. So you spend a lot of time there. So after time in operation, where I spent a lot of my time redesigning all the equipment, teaching my operators to care for their equipment, and we did a little bit of vibration. We were just sort of dabbling in predictive technologies. We got that department under control, and guess what? When you have a little success, what do? They say, hey, now why don't you be the maintenance manager of this plant? And I'm going, I don't want to be maintenance manager of this plant, right? I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. It's more fun to build stuff and design stuff and do that. Maintaining in this plant, it was an older plant. So I was asked to do that, and I've learned in Cargill that if they asked you more than once, you know, it would be good maybe to say yes. So they asked me twice, I said yes the second time. So I didn't know much. I knew that proactive work was better than reactive, right? And I knew that I had to educate myself in what that all means. What does it mean to really do proactive work? And so that's what I worked on. So I did pretty well in that role, I suppose, because they made me the business unit reliability leader. It was the first one of Cargill and its time. And then a couple years later, they made me the global reliability and maintenance manager. And so I'm going to start a little bit when I got involved corporately. I think in any job that you have to understand what your company's goals are, right? You have to understand what they're trying to do at the time and what's important at the time. Now, I took advantage, and this was in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I took advantage of things that were going on with Cargill globally, okay? A couple things happened. We're a family-owned, privately held company. We're typically very, very successful. We had a couple bad years because we made a couple bad decisions, okay? Everybody makes decisions, and sometimes they work and sometimes they aren't. So there was a reorganization, and the reorganization was to go to business units instead of having sectors and things. They were going to go to business units, about 80 of them, globally, based on market and customer segments, okay? And at the time I thought, oh my God. But it was a brilliant move by whoever thought of it, or it was a team of Cargill executives that thought of it. And the idea was that we would get closer to the customer, we would understand our customer, we would have customer solutions, and we could supply innovative products to our customers. Now, to supply innovative products to your customer, you got to have customers that trust you, and the way to get trust is what? What do you think? What's the one way to lose trust or get trust with a customer in any operating thing?
Deliver a good product.
There you go. Deliver a quality product when you say you're going to do it, right? In time and at what you say you're going to do it for, right? Yeah. So reliability is paramount for that, right? So we took advantage, that myself and a group of us, we took advantage of saying, hey, you're not going to have customer solutions. They won't even talk to you if you can't deliver on time every day in a proper manner. So now you take maintenance improvement stuff and you get corporate attention by saying, we're going to help provide customer solutions of reliability, and now all of a sudden you're part of the corporate effort to change, right? Now, that may not fit your organization, but I guarantee you, you work for somebody, they have a vision of what the future is going to be. So you have to figure out what you do, how that fits in that vision, so you can be supported at a corporate level. Then I was lucky. I said, find and educate a corporate or BU sponsor. Well, the BU sponsor was a corn milling vice president of operations. He sort of found me. He was a visionary. He was the only one in Cargill, really, that at the time understood there has to be a better way to do maintenance. He told me, I want you to figure out for our business how we put professionalism back into maintenance and we do things right and we stop doing reactive work. That's what he told me, right? And I go, okay, I'll figure that out, because I didn't know. I did agree with him. I did agree with him from my past experience that proactive is better than reactive, but I had no idea really how to do it, right? And he says, I know you don't know how to do it, but you're supposed to figure that out and do it quickly. Okay, do it quickly. He didn't have a lot of patience. And that's okay, because he didn't need to have. Yeah, and then the other one was our Chief Technology Officer and Corporate VP of Operations. He also had that same vision at the same time. So those were my two bosses that I worked for, okay? So they sort of, the one found me, I found the other one, because I sort of got a reputation because I educated myself that I knew maybe a better way of doing things, and then got our plants to do some of those things, and we had a little bit of success in the beginning. So you have to have support at the top. You can't do it from the bottom. You have to do it from both ends, and you have to find support at the top, whether that's a CEO, whether it's a COO, a CFO. If you get support from them, that'd be great. But you got to do that, and and I'll talk a little bit about how you have to talk to those folks. Now, the other thing we used, and this came from one of my initial bosses in corn milling when I took the corn milling job, was that they said, you know, I'm a business guy, I'm a commercial guy. What you're talking about is all this technical stuff. It really doesn't make sense to me. Can you draw me a picture? Basically, is what he's saying. Can you draw me a picture? And I go, okay, well, it sort of makes sense to me, but I understand with your background, maybe you don't understand. So I said, okay, I'll work on that. I'll try to draw a picture. So you have to use visual models to create a vision. What came out of that is you have to create a vision for people so they can see what you're trying to do. Okay? Now, some of the things I used RCM failure curves. They come right out of the books, right? And the studies from RCM and Nolan and Heaps. The infamous PF curve, we talked about that earlier, didn't we? Paul, it was Paul, I don't know who talked about it earlier. The infamous PF curve. We have an asset assurance model, there's a proactive model. I applied some of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People to some of them. I'll show you that. So I did this. So this is the failure curves, right? So this comes right out of RCM theory, right? And so you get people to understand that you have to change their paradigm because people think things break because of age. And that is not true in the majority of things. Studies show it's like 11% break due to age, about 89% to random failure, okay? So when I got challenged on this stuff, I'd say, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only 70% random and 30% age because of the thing. But we have to change the way we think things fail. Things fail due to defects that typically we put it in sometime during the process. We can prevent those, right? So you got to get people to think differently about how equipment fails. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's going to fail. Some of our best plants are old. Some of our worst plants are poorly designed new plants, right? I use the PF curve. This is sort of the Bible for condition-based work, right? You're trying to get people to stop thinking about using only their visual senses to understand they have a problem and use more sophisticated tools like most of the people in the audience know about, right? So we use this a lot. Asset health assurance, this is where you're trying to get a hold of how much equipment do you have? What's the criticality of the equipment to the business? How does that critical equipment fail? And what are your mitigating strategies to keep and prevent it from failing or understand failure, right? This sort of is an extension of RCM theory, where you're trying to understand failure modes of your critical equipment, put in plans, and then implement it. Proactive model. This is where you're trying to get the organization to think differently. And then the last one, this is another proactive model where it's a little extended. You folks probably have seen some of these stuff. So the point of this is you have to be visual with people. You have to give them a visual model of where you want to go and give them something to strive for. What's the vision? Now, you do things in business because you're going to make money. So if you talk to the business leaders, you have to talk to them in the language of money. So what you have to understand is that you have to understand that a project, and this is an improvement project, it has investments. There are costs to the business, just like any capital project. You're going to build a plant, you're going to invest money in materials and equipment and people to build the plant. Typically that's up front. There are upfront costs you have to do and ongoing costs. And then you have to say, what are the benefits? So you have to explore at what the benefits are, and then you have to calculate what the return on investment was and what the net present value is. You have to. You have to talk to the commercial people, the business leaders in money, because their eyes will glaze over the first time you talk anything technical to them. They're in business. They want to know, how's this product, how's this project that you want to do, or whatever you want to do, how's this going to benefit the business? If you can do that well, I don't care what your project is, they'll do it. They'll do it. So you got to talk in money. And the other thing, the intangibles, how does reliability affect customer solutions? How does it affect safety? How does it affect their risk? Today, risk is huge, right? The explosion in West Texas, I mean, jeez. If I'm in that business in another company and I'm the CEO, I'm going, oh my God. It could happen to us. How do we know it's not going to, right? So you use those to sell the type of reliability products you have. Passion's enough said. You have to have passion about what you're doing. To have passion, you have to believe it works. You have to see that it works. You have to educate yourself. Now, that gets to education. So what I did was way back when I became maintenance manager of this one plant in Ohio, And I didn't know much other than, hey, I know proactive's better than reactive. What I had is a personal improvement plan. I said, I'm going to learn as much as I can about this. One way I did it was I read a book a month. I don't quite do that today, but I read a fair amount, right? So I had a goal. I read a book a month, and they were all technical, typically, in the beginning, except for things like Covey's 7 Habits and all those kinds of improvement stuff. So that's cost nothing. Really doesn't take much time, right? Anybody can do that. And all of a sudden, if you do that for a couple years, what I found was all of a sudden people thought I knew more than they did or anybody in the organization about this one subject. And all I did is read, right? I read it. There's good of industry magazines out. There's really good blogs. Back then I didn't have that. The industry magazines weren't that good. The blogs weren't that good. There's some good white papers. But now, I mean, there's a myriad of stuff on the web today, right? There's all kind of white papers. There's all kind of blogs. There's some really good industry magazines. So it's easy to get that. And going to conferences like this, I think the conferences today are probably, okay, I won't compare. They're very good quality. Very good quality, and I think they get better, okay? But you can educate yourself at low cost on your own without asking anybody. You can do that. Now, I was always a guy that I would never ask for permission. I always asked for forgiveness. Okay? Okay. Now, to do that, it's personal risk, right? Because if you're not right, so I was almost fired a couple times. That's okay. Somebody will hire me. Allied did, right? What the hell? But there's things you can do by yourself without asking permission. You don't need permission to do these things, right? You don't need permission to put a business case together. You don't need permission to get all this education. You don't need permission. You can do it. So what I did is, these are some of the things I did, and these are some suggestions. One of the best books I've read on reliability is the top left, Making Common Sense Common Practice by Ron Moore. I went to SMRP. I became involved in SMRP. The reason I did that is because I learned more. I started just going, and then I started getting involved, and I started learning people and again networking. Reliability Web's pretty good. Uptime Magazine's good. There's some good blogs out there. Ricky Smith has a good blog, Maintenance Phoenix. Sean Eisenhower, who was here, I don't think Sean's here now. Reliability Now is a good blog. Doug Plunkett, RCM, Blitz. There's all kinds of stuff. I even went to Ultrasound World a fair amount. Yeah. So anyway, these are just a sampling of some of them, right? Now, some of the books I read, you'll see, 2 of the books that I have up there are not really technical at all. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Good to Great's an excellent book by Jim Collins. That's maybe dated. It was done in the 90s, but it's still a pretty good read. Okay? So those are the kinds of things you can do to educate yourself without spending hardly any money. Now, I also developed allies. You have to develop allies to help you do things, okay? Now, the other thing and this flows together about another topic I'm going to talk about, core competency. But my thought was, I'm not that smart, okay? I barely made it through engineering school. In fact, I majored in partying and minored in chemical engineering, okay? It's just fact, right? So I'm not that smart, but to be good, you don't have to be smart. You just got to be smart enough to know who is the experts in the world. Who's the best at this in the world? So what I did, and I did this a lot through SMRP and other events that I went to, or I would just email them or call people, guys like Ron Moore. They're my buddies. They're friends. They're personal friends now. The guys and the gurus that write the books in this business are my friends. Why? Because you surround yourself with experts. You don't have to be that smart, because you just have to go where to go and ask them, and they'll tell you, then help you and tell you the answer. So building experts, and like sort of an informal advisory team, you can do that. That doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't cost you a dime. Oh, you might have to write a book. Read a book. You might have to thank somebody. You know, you might have to do that, but it doesn't cost you anything. So then what I did is I said, you know, at a corporate level, what we really need to do is have a team of like-minded folks, build experts, and what I had to do is convince other business units to name reliability leaders that I could work with in a business. Now, Cargill, who knows a little bit about Cargill? A few people? Cargill's a global food company. Still say we because they're going to pay me a pension someday, I hope. We have 160,000 people in 69 or 70 countries. We have about 1,200 facilities worldwide. Now they're all organized by 75 or 80 BUs. So there's no way as a corporate reliability leader that I'm going to go to 1,400 facilities. It's just not going to happen. So what I have to do is work at the lead of each business unit, teach them, help those people implement with their plans, right? That's the only way to do it. So what we did is develop a steering committee of BU reliability leaders. So the first thing, at the time, I was the only one. I had one BU that had a reliability leader. That was me. It was corn milling. So I had to go to other operations and commercial leaders of other business units, and I started at the big ones first, where they had the opportunity, in my view. And I had to convince them to spend money at a position at a fairly higher rate of salary, right, to become a BU reliability leader. So what do you think you had to do to sell that? What's the tool you used to sell that deal? Anyone? What? Business case. Yeah, so you had to learn about their business, you had to understand what their pain was, had to know what their goals were, and you had to put it in a rough business case to say, hey, you got an opportunity here. And oh, by the way, they said, well, can you help me with that? I said, I don't have time for that. I got my own business unit, but I'm trying to do this. You gotta name somebody. You gotta put somebody there. I said, well, we don't have anybody. I said, just name somebody good. We'll educate them, right? So you have to work your way through that. You have to get procurement and engineering involved. And I had outside advisors, much like a board. If you look at a board of directors of Cargill, they got outside advisors on, one's from Wells Fargo Bank. I don't know what they know about making food, but they know about banking, right? So what I did is through hook or crook, got Ron Moore and John Schultz from Allied Reliability to sit on our steering committee with our team for outside help. Now, they didn't have any voting rights. All they were there is for advising, right? Again, so you can work your way around it. So you have to educate that steering team, and you do that by the same way I educated myself. They maybe didn't believe me, so I would take them, the whole team, to SMRP and have them listen to everybody else say the same thing that I'm trying to tell them, right? You educate that team, and then all of a sudden they start learning, and all of a sudden they start learning more than you do, and you go, oh boy, these guys are getting pretty good. Then they start coming up with very good ideas to how to improve reliability at their plants that you can share to other plants. And then we all agreed beyond that, we would do the CMRP, the SMRP's Certified Maintenance Reliability Professional. So, you have to develop allies, you got to develop a team to help you, and then you got to educate that team. And it's not acceptable, the team members police themselves. It's not acceptable for somebody to be uneducated. Because having a conversation with the team and you got one member that's uneducated, they're doing you no good, right? So, education. What's next? You got to have metrics. You got to measure what you measure works. So we had global metrics. We like standardized definitions. SMRP's metrics that are on the website. I think Sean talked about that yesterday. That's a good help to get this started. We had strategic measures that we would look at a global or BU level. We had tactical measures that we wanted people to look at either the plant or department, and we would roll them up and report BU by quarter, typically what we did. Now, the next is a question. I think you got to know what's your core competency, what your company's core competency is. Because I think too many companies that I run into think they can do everything and be good at everything. I just think that's unrealistic. Now, for the people that know Cargill, what do you think Cargill's core competency is? Anybody know? Yeah, we know a little bit about making food. We're pretty good at that. Okay, we've had a lot of experience at it. We're leaders in the food safety realm, right? Even though we sometimes do get headlines occasionally. What else?
Buying and selling commodities.
Oh, yes. Our roots go back to 1865 as a grain merchant. These guys are brilliant at knowing when to buy low and sell high. They're great at any market you want, whether that's grain, whether that's metals, whether that's money, whether that's whatever it is, whether it's energy, whether it's carbon credits, whether it's whatever. They're great at doing it, and we're typically on the right side of the market. In our business, that's critical business for us because you have to be on the right side of the market buying raw materials correctly. And there's another one. What's the other one you think? Logistics, yeah. We're brilliant at knowing how to get things from there to A to B globally. Brilliant. We're pretty good at operational excellence. I think we weren't 30 years ago when I started, we weren't really good at safety, but I think that's one of the core competencies that we have now because we've learned a lot and we're a very safe and conscious plant. Now, what do you think our leaders know about predictive maintenance? Jeez, Zippo. There's not much today that do. Now, they might be able to spell it. They couldn't spell reliability at the start, but they don't know very much. So is that our core competency at Cargill? No. Do you eat, sleep, and breathe that? No. So didn't know a whole lot about that. Now, we were pretty good, I think, at managing plants and efficiency, but we certainly weren't good at that. So you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then if you want to be the best in the world, you partner with the best in the world. Okay? So we had a select supplier process, and we worked through this with procurement, where we had to make a decision, was it something that we would use external resources for or not? Can we do it well and be best at it internally? If we could, we did it internally. And if we couldn't, we were going to partner with the best in the world. So to do that, we typically would have a process where we would go out, we would first get deep understanding of the topic, let's just say vibration analysis. And so, I've gone to 3 levels of vibration training, I think. I'm not certified. I haven't analyzed anything in a long time. But what we did is we educated ourselves on the thing, and then we went out and we went to the market. We understood the market. We understood who the suppliers were. We understood all that kind of stuff. And we said, the best in the world is this company right here. And then what we would do is go directly to that company, and we say, we want a deal. We want a deal to buy your product, XYZ product. Right? I'll use UE because we're here. I'll cut them a break. We looked at the UE market. We said, UE Systems it. We went right to Gary. I went right to Gary and said, we want to buy your product. Let's talk turkey. Let's talk deal. And we're going to do it across the board, our whole thing. And this is what we need. This is what we want. Right? So then we would use our suppliers to educate our team on that, but we would pick the best supplier. I don't like this 3-bid and all that baloney. Never did. Go work with the best people in the world, figure out what they're doing, go and negotiate with them in good faith. You can't get a good deal, there's always a number 2. Right? Always a number 2. Then if number 1 doesn't want to do it, okay, fine, you don't want to play. And we've had to do that in some areas. Go play with number 2. But work with the best in the world. And then what we could do is we could use our plants to influence the product direction, because that's what we really wanted. And we've done that with UE Systems, right? The UE 3000 was because of us, right? The grease caddy might have been sort of because of us. So, in other words, the issues is that what they're doing is solving problems in my plants by better equipment, better tools at a lower rate, and also training my people on how to do it, right? And there are benefits that you get from aligning with a company like that. So, partner with the best in the world to be the best. You partner with turkeys, you become a turkey. It's that simple, right? I think. Now, I got involved with SMRP in 1997, and I was on the board for about 8 years. And it's really a good organization because it did a couple things, I think. One, the things that I used to take back to Cargill, and I talked to my team, either my steering committee or I talked to other people, you know, they're going to say, well, I don't believe you, Tim. What do you know? You know, because they knew when I was a 22-year-old kid that was in Memphis, Tennessee and didn't know what a control valve was. They knew me back then, right? I'm a little changed since then, right? So what I did is I used SMRP. I said, hey, don't believe me. Just go to SMRP or call these people. You talk to them. Talk to their background. So what it did is legitimize what I was trying to accomplish. Because everybody's saying about the same thing, right? It allowed to educate my people, and it allowed them to network and know people, so they would do it, and they would start doing the same thing that I had done, building allies, learning more, applying more, right? So I typically went to the conference. This year's in Indianapolis. Again, we have all Sean went through all this stuff, right? If you were here for Sean's things. But we used all of them. Now, you did notice that the #1 company on the list of most CMRPs was who? Cargill. There was a reason for that. What do you think the reason was? Because well, I was part of it, but no, we pushed that heavily. Our leadership pushed that heavily. And Rick Baldridge was my colleague, and you saw what he said. The only time, we told people the only time you're failing that test is if you're not taking it. Because we wanted people, we had operations people take it. Our procurement and engineering people that are on a steering committee, their CMRPs, they took it. We had our IT, we had an IT specialist that helped us with Maximo and other things. He became a CMRP in IT, right? Now that took some education and all that. He's a smart guy to begin with, but he did some education. But all that stuff was because we pushed it, and it made a big difference. Made a big difference because it causes people to educate themselves and get better, right? And so doing that really does it. What we also did, we on a monthly basis would travel regionally to a region in the world, and we would do 2.5 day best practice workshops. That gives a basic overview of what we're trying to accomplish. Create the vision. This is what RCM is. This is what RCM analysis is. This is how you plan correctly. Oh, by the way, planning does not equal scheduling. They're two different things, right? Those kinds of things. We talked to them about the high fundamentals of how to do root cause analysis. We talked to them all about that. We did all kinds of stuff like that to educate them, to get them to the next level. Now, after a couple years, you know, getting good people is tough. But I tell you, when I was at Cargill, good people came to me all the time and said, you know, really, I'd like to work for you and your company. And I go, well, I don't know why. Why do you want to do that? You know, and they go, well, you're serious. And I go, what do you mean? Well, Cargill's serious about reliability, and they're going to let me do what I know we need to do. And so that's sort of a high praise compliment for any organization, in my view. So good people would come out of the woodwork wanting to work for us. One, because good people want to work for people that are serious, that are educated, and don't waste their time and energy and knocking their head against the wall and getting nothing done, right? So finding people has a lot to do with reputation of who you are and what you do and what you allow them to do. So with success and reputation come good people because they want to be part of a winning team, right? Sort of how that works. So those are the insights that I had, you know, reflecting back on some of the things that I did. And, you know, I think the challenge is to anyone really doing any job. The main issues are you can educate yourself. You don't need permission. It doesn't cost that much. If you're going to talk about anything in business, you got to know how to talk in a business sense, which means you might have to educate yourself on basic fundamentals of economics and what a business plan is and what NPV is and all that kind of stuff, right? You got to do that. It's easy to build allies. It's pretty easy. Just got to be honest up front and fair with people. People will help you. Everybody in this business has helped me tremendously in this business. They'll help you anytime. You got to bring experts in. You can't do it all yourself. I continue to go to lots of customers that want to do everything themselves internally. And that's okay. Most can't because they don't have the time, energy, money to do it, or expertise, right? So you need help. So those are the things that I think that are really, really important that you can apply no matter what business you're in at any level, and that's what I'm sort of hoping to get across.
All right, Tim, thank you.